evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. A pretty sad story tonight. One person is dead. The alleged killer may soon be roaming the streets free. Why is that? Well, because leaders of the Democratic Party are starting to believe, internalize the belief, act on the belief that illegal aliens have more rights than American citizens. Look at this picture. This is Ivan Zamarripa Castaneda. Look closely. That is, in fact, an Ace of Hearts tattoo on his face. But that's not the problem with this man. The problem is twofold. First, he's an illegal alien. Second, over the weekend in Denver, police say he got drunk and slammed his car into a semi-truck. The truck burst into flames. The driver was burned to death. Rather than stay at the scene, Zamarripa Castaneda fled the scene. He was later arrested. Now he faces charges of vehicular homicide. And then politics got involved, which is why we're bringing this to your attention tonight. Federal authorities have asked Denver to detain this man so he can be arrested on federal charges and deported back to Mexico, where he's from and should be living. But no, they can't. Why? Because Denver is a sanctuary city, and that means that Democratic politicians there are committed to protecting the accused killer, even if it means he'll soon be loose in downtown Denver, and he may be. As soon as he posts a $25,000 bond, he will be free to go until his next court date. That's assuming he bothers to show up in court. And by the way, why would he? He snuck into this country. He's going to go to court? Probably not. When Democrats say they're committed to protecting undocumented immigrants, this is who they're talking about. They believe illegal aliens accused of murder deserve to be protected from you more than you deserve to be protected from them. They care more about Ivan Zamarripa Castaneda than they care about you. They'll ignore and undermine federal law on his behalf. Would they do that for you? I don't think so. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has filed suit to stop insanity like this. The Department of Justice has sued the state of California. It's a sanctuary state that has explicitly announced it will punish citizens there for cooperating with the federal government in the pursuit of enforcing immigration law. Democrats in California are outraged by what the Attorney General has done. They're calling him the real criminal. Watch.
What Jeff Sessions said is simply not true. And I call upon him to apologize to the people of California, to bringing the mendacity of Washington to California and trying to insert discord and division.
How dare you vilify members of our community by trying to frighten the American public into thinking that all undocumented residents are dangerous criminals?
How dare you? This is how the left has begun to think. If you believe accused murderers who shouldn't be in this country ought to go back to their own countries, you're the one who's out of line. If you believe in borders, you're a monster. This isn't your country. It belongs to other people now. That's the message they're sending explicitly. The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, joins us right now. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So this is, I think it's fair to say, an emergency if a city government is making it possible for an accused killer to go free simply because they're morally opposed to federal immigration law. That's setting up a conflict between the state and the federal government. How can this be stopped? What's the next step here?
The American people have got to speak first and foremost to these governmental leaders. It's just unacceptable to take this case in Denver that you just cited, where the individual will be released from jail. Our ICE officers are not going to stop looking for him. They're going to go out to find him. They'll be at greater risk. They'll place people in the community at greater risk to try to make an arrest there when they could have been safely picked up in the custody of the Denver authorities. So this situation is very, very serious, and it represents a commitment from the hard left, these activist groups, to open borders and non-legal enforcement of immigration. Cannot be the policy of the United States of America.
So some Democratic politicians say the states are not, and I think they're legally correct, are not obligated to carry out federal law. But then others, including the mayor of Oakland, have gone farther and actively tried to subvert federal law, as Mayor Libby Schaaf of Oakland did the other day by warning people that federal agents were coming. Does that constitute obstruction of justice, and should she be prosecuted for that?
We're looking at that. Our fabulous ICE officers and Tom Homan are keeping us posted on what's really happening there. Those kind of things depend on the law and the facts, and we'll evaluate them at the Department of Justice. But yes, this is a radical ideology. It's contrary to the American law. The supreme law of the land is American immigration law, and it must be enforced, else we'll just have open borders, and that cannot be.
Well, we have open borders in effect in a lot of ways. Now we're getting something that looks like insurrection almost. The biggest state saying we're going to actively work to undermine basic federal law. Do you worry that the country won't hang together?
I don't think so. I think this is an extreme act. When I was in California, I heard countless people tell me they were embarrassed and outraged about what was going on. I think these people have just been able to get away with it and not been challenged intellectually as to the meaning of what they're doing, how radical it is, how unacceptable it is, how it places the lives of American police officers and ICE officers at greater risk, as well as our communities at greater risk, because we keep criminals in the country that are due to be deported.
Do you see how, if you're looking on as an observer of this, it does seem like the federal government is toothless in the face of this challenge? Elected officials stand up, give the finger to federal immigration authorities, to law enforcement. With impunity, it does seem like the mayor of Oakland has more power than the feds.
Well, Tucker, whether we're going to use every lawful tool we have to push back against this activity, you can be sure of that. I will say, however, that ultimately in this country, the American people have the final word, and they have got to analyze what their leaders are doing, and if they're promoting these kind of unlawful, unwise, and dangerous policies, they need to be held to account. And when the political needle starts moving, I think you'll see politicians start changing.
The Attorney General you replaced, one Attorney General before that, Eric Holder, has endorsed this. Do you think it's odd that a former chief law enforcement officer in the country would be endorsing ignoring federal law?
Well, he's being hired by the state, being paid a legal fee to represent the state of California. But I totally believe that this policy that they're defending in California is unwise and in many places clearly illegal. And we're going to challenge its legality, and we're going to challenge its wisdom, and we're going to defend federal law officers and state law officers who are out there trying to do their duty every day and are being placed at much greater risk because they won't even let the police talk to the federal officers, who are the only ones that can actually deport a criminal alien.
So just to switch gears, I think a lot of people, certainly I think a lot of our viewers, have lost confidence in law enforcement and intelligence gathering agencies in this country because they think they've been used for political purposes to spy on Americans without real cause. And Carter Page, I think, would be at the top of that list. Don't you think it would go a long way to restoring public confidence in those agencies if the rest of us had some sense of the basis upon which the FISA warrants were gotten for spying on Carter Page?
It is our responsibility, and I think my responsibility, to ensure that the FISA process is carried out professionally, properly, lawfully, and with integrity. I intend to do that. We are working on that now. Our Office of Inspector General has almost 500 employees, investigators, and prosecutors, and they're going to work on this and get to the bottom of it.
But could we see, I mean, because there's so much lying about this, from partisan lying, maybe from both sides, I know from one, about why the court granted the government the right to spy on this American citizen. Wouldn't it just dispel all the myths and the conspiracies if we could see, redacted of course, but if we could see the basis for it?
Well, we've never produced publicly the FISA warrants, but I have to tell you, Tucker, we've produced more documents, in this case more information to the Congress and to the public than I think any Attorney General's office in history has. We're going to go as far as we can go to make things public, and we're going to ensure.
So you don't think we need a special prosecutor to look into this?
Well, we're going to get to the bottom of it. It could be one day that a special prosecutor would be required, but we're going to look at this both with attorneys and within the Inspector General's office, and they will get to the bottom.
So you're giving a speech tomorrow essentially about the rule of law, I think. I read a copy of it, to the Federalist Society, and it raised a question in my mind about judges. Shouldn't the Congress act as a counterbalance against judicial overreach? If there's a judge who is clearly not even consulting the Constitution and making law, why wouldn't the Congress try to balance that out?
You know, it's gotten to the point where Congress, I think, has been too willing to cede its powers. I felt that when I was a member of the Congress. I feel it even more so now as the Attorney General. When I'm finding single judges, 1 out of 600, issue an executive order, an injunction, a court injunction against executive orders of the executive branch of the United States without a foundation for that. You could have 10 other judges who oppose it, but the one who enjoins it, their opinion is upheld. It may take 18 months to get the matter to the Supreme Court. It is disrupting the ability of this government to function, and I'm really concerned about it. It's time for the nation to reconsider these injunctions.
Yeah, I mean, that's not democracy. That's a monarchy or something. Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. Well, Rays is